Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Productivity Mastery, the podcast that's bringing you some of the most inspiring and accomplished leaders, business leaders, entrepreneurs, executives. I couldn't be more honored to be joined today by an exceptional guest. By the age of 34, he has achieved already so much. Only 4 years ago, him and his co founders started a company in the beautiful country of Bulgaria that turned out to be now, just 4 years later, the first Bulgarian unicorn. Hristo is a humble and accomplished leader and a role model for many of us. And I'm super excited to have him today on the podcast. Hopefully, we can dig into many of those details of what really helped him and his co founders to achieve this success and continue moving forward. Hristo, how are you this morning?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Stoyan, for the invitation. I'm feeling great. The spring is coming along, so I cannot wait for the beautiful weather to be in Sofia. Uh, yes, and with that, obviously, our mood is increasing.
Man, I was just seeing your beautiful face yesterday on the cover of Forbes, and really saw them like, wow, so excited to, great timing to have you on the podcast, great milestone as well. But maybe could you lead us a little bit back into the beginnings? 2018. What really happened for you to begin on this journey? And I read in an interview that that was the time also that you had your first kid. So which is also quite interesting. Who is starting a
Yeah.
company when you get a kid, right? So tell us about the beginnings of the story. How did you decide to embark on this journey?
I mean, I have been thinking about a startup for quite some time. We had a good experience with a couple of friends during 2014, 2015 with starting an app in Bulgaria called Grazdanite, the Citizens app for reporting violations on the street. So that became extremely popular. We had 150,000 people using the app. Became the most downloaded app on the App Store in Bulgaria. But I always wanted to start something that is not alongside work, but just to be fully embraced in something. And maybe the experience with Graduate taught me that if you are going to do something as a startup, it needs to be all in, right? You cannot do it over the weekends. You cannot do it just late at night. Even though this is what we did for, let's say, a year and a half with Graduate, this was a very exhausting experience. And 2018, you're right, my first daughter was born. It was in April, and I took a paternity leave for 2 weeks, and it was so hard, uh, so tough. We didn't sleep for 10 days with my wife. And then as soon as that was finished, I told my wife, I need to quit and do a startup right now, because if I don't do it every day that she grows up, I'm going to be getting away from the dream to start a company and to build a product company. And yeah, it was a tough conversation. Obviously, getting back to without a salary, she on a maternity leave was kind of a challenging times. But I also knew that I perform best when I get rid of all the safety nets, and I just don't have a cushion, to rely on, right? So it is make it or break it, right? So that actually, I think, was healthy pressure at the beginning. After a year and a half, that piled up, and wasn't that easy. But 2018, I decided that it is going to be best to go and start up a company. Spoke to back then one of my colleagues at Telerik, who was part of my team, Boyko Karajov, and I told him, let's go and build a company. And I told him, I think you're going to be the best CTO of a company. And he said, well, I think you're going to be the best CEO of that company. Yeah, I mean, the idea was to just go and build a big company. And we were very systematic and focused on identifying a problem that we can solve. Because we knew from our years at Telerik that we have the confidence and the know-how how to build products at scale. The question was, can we find a big enough market, and can we find enough funding to be able to own that market. So that's kind of how things started. 2018, we started on 2nd of July. Um, we started with a Google Sprint, and then for about month and a half, we did, I don't know, maybe 40, 45 interviews. We set initially with capital of 15,000 euro, and we spent most probably half of those money on Amazon gift cards, trying to convince financial people to speak to us by offering them $100 or $200 Amazon gift card so that they can invest 30 minutes in speaking with somebody that's building some kind of a startup somewhere from Bulgaria.
I love it, man. How important was it for you to be around co-founders that you knew, you trusted, you shared the same values, beliefs, ambitions?
Yeah, I mean, initially we started with Boyko, and I told him, I really need a co-founder. I need somebody that is equally vested into this business, so that we can go through this together. Later on, Konstantin, who was at the time working with Vasil Terziev and the 11th Fund, who has been helping from day one, decided to join the company once we did the seed round in 2020. But it was very important to have Boyko, Konstantin, and also the early employees that joined Payhawk very early on. And those were people that I have worked with for quite some time, and I trusted very well, very much. And I think that's super important. At the end of the day, the team is all it matters, right? You cannot do it if you try to optimize for your stake. For at the end of the day, you need to have the mentality that if you're going to on that journey to create something that is going to be very large and very big, you should not micro optimize. You should just act as a successful person, meaning that you need to be fair. You need to create a strong options program from very early on. You need to be able to just one example. I mean, when we started the company with Boyko, he said, like, I would be happy to join even if I have, let's say, 20% of the business. I told him, I need somebody equally vested like me. So I think it is, let's not optimize on the percentages, let's optimize percentage of what. Right? I mean, that to me is pretty important, and I think for startups, I have seen too many startups getting in a stage where they have fights with the co-founders, they have fights about titles, who does what, and that's a recipe for disaster. I mean, if you don't trust each other very early on, and if you don't know who does what and who is good at what and who is not good at what, it's going to be a very tough conversation. And I think the other thing that's very important when startups embark on that journey is, it doesn't matter how close those people are to you and how well you know them. It is very important to set up an early vesting schedule, even for your stocks, so that if you decide in the next 3 or 4 years to leave, everybody knows what he leaves on the table, right? So that this is not a conversation that you're going to have when the time is tough and things are not working, and then you have to have that conversation. Agree on things and terms ahead of time, so that everything is fair and everybody understands, um, the relationship. Because at the end of the day, at Payhawk, we say that we're not a family, we're a professional team. And in a professional team, you need to have the right structure.
Right, managing expectations reminds me of we did an interview with the founder and CEO of a company called Miro, a whiteboard app, and included them in the book Perform, the unsexy truth about startup success. Excited to include you in the next edition as well. And one of the things he mentioned was you have to start having conversations about culture from day one. All right, like
Yeah.
who are we? What do we stand for? What are the expectations? Like how do we get out if we do? Where do we want to be? Where is the vision? And I'm actually excited to hear from you um, about the vision. You keep on saying we had this ambition, this tapping into large markets, achieving something great. Where's this ambition coming from? I mean, you grew up in Bulgaria, I would imagine, right? And
Yeah.
it's not like we grew up in this environment where they tell you, hey, you're gonna build a unicorn, that and that. Where's this vision coming from? How can you be so confident on the vision. And did you actually have some people that were laughing at you early on when you were sharing your ambition?
Well, I mean, I think the ambition came from the fact that at Telerik, at the company I was before, it became again, it was kind of the biggest success factor for the Bulgarian ecosystem in the last 15 years, and actually since the incubation of the startup ecosystem. So out of Telerik, there are 40, 45 companies that span out of that single success story, and I think at Telerik we gained the confidence that we can go and compete with products that are on a world scale. I mean, when we were building one product in 2012, 2013, we had customers saying, this technology is better than what Microsoft is doing. We had 2017 building another technology where analysts were saying this is much better than what IBM and Google are doing in AI. So that was kind of something that we knew that we can come up with the technology. We knew that we have the experience to build stuff, but the question mark to me has always been, can we go and create the right go-to-market strategy? Because that is something that we miss as a region, right? I mean, we do have extremely good tech people, and, because of our background and because of our math education and our traditions in those disciplines, but we didn't have a chance to have a very good business environment for the last 70, 80 years, right? And that is a big effect, right? I mean, if you look at usually, our parents or our grandparents, they didn't have that ambition, right? Because they didn't have that environment available to them. And to me, I think I always wanted to prove that, there is actually nothing wrong to have amazing companies starting out in Bulgaria, and to really, if we are going to put the effort, and if I'm going to put everything on the line as a startup in a situation that's going to be very tough for me, we should just do 120% of what's possible. And from one fact, we had the confidence on the product side. We faced the challenge on building the right go-to-market strategy, and this is something that Telerik did extremely well. They were able to dominate the market and became the leading solution in that market. And this was an example that it was possible. And for us, very early on, it was not a question mark about the tech. It was a question mark on whether we can address these international markets out of Bulgaria. Um, because at the end of the day, all of our competitors at the time, they did have a very comfortable domestic markets. So those companies grew to significant revenues and funding within their local environments. And it's much easier to become a dominant player in your local environment if you have a large domestic market than to be international from then on. But we actually used that as advantage. We said, well, it's going to be tough. We need to crack international markets from day one. But we devised our strategy around Payhawk being focused on international customers from day one. And not only just customers that are based in France or Denmark or UK or Italy, but customers that have business entities across Europe. And that is something that I'm a big fan of. So there is a very nice article by Michael Porter on Harvard Business Review called "What is Strategy?" And what Michael Porter explains there is that strategies, you do have a plan, but many things happen as you move along your plan. And strategy is exactly the opportunity to catch those opportunities that arise and you were not expecting about them, and continue to evaluate and reinvent your strategy around those opportunities. Because if you have a plan and you execute that plan for 2 years and you don't change anything from what's happening, you're not learning, right? And to me, that's a great definition of what happened to Payhawk. We had a strategy, and many things happened along the way, and we were fast enough to bring them and incubate them within the actual strategy and more of the actual strategy. So we, this way we said, okay, international market is key because we don't have a domestic market that is going to be big enough for us to become a big company. If we're targeting those international markets, we hired people from very early on, people in Germany, Spain, UK, and we started bringing those companies that have international presence, that are mid-sized enterprises. And right now, the economy of the Europe is that it is very well interconnected, and that allows for a solution like Payhawk. And it actually requires a solution like Payhawk, where you can use one product to manage all of your businesses across the country. So that is kind of how we think about it. And to answer your question about culture, I think the key thing for us was that, first of all, we all used to work together for quite some time, and we knew our habits. We knew that we all cherish a very horizontal structure, very democratic environment where it is a team effort and everybody can bring things to the table. Environment where if you sit in a room and you have, let's say, 10 people, and you have a discussion, you have no idea whose title is what. And that was very important, right? You don't want a person dominating the room, right? You want to hear what everybody is saying, and it doesn't matter whether it's somebody joined the company yesterday and he has a good idea, or whether I have a good idea. The question is how much the team believes in that idea and how practical we see that idea of achieving our objective at the specific point in time. So yeah, I mean, we didn't kind of put everything on the low. I mean, this is our culture, this is what we do. We had a very strong core for 5 people at the beginning, which we knew how to work together. And we have been trying to keep that environment as we're scaling now, trying to really give the good examples of the people that are now becoming managers and managing other people. We are also trying to bring everybody to Bulgaria twice a year, where we spend one team building during the winter, one team building during the summer, where people can understand that at the end of the day, a big part of the motivation is that 60-70% of the company is based in Bulgaria, and we do have this kind of a strong motivation that we want to prove ourselves on the tech scene. And this is something that you don't see in companies that are based in the UK or France. France had, I don't know, 24 unicorns so far. They just had 5 this year or 6. So the motivation there is different than somebody working on the first one in Bulgaria.
I understand. Do you now have some sort of a more specific set of, these are our values, this is our culture, so
Yeah, I
you're
mean, we
trying to
do
track?
have 3-4 things. So first of all, we are first of all very big on the customers. So we joke at the company that everybody has 2 titles: customer success and something else. So this kind of devotion to customers is very important because being in an early organization that's growing in a market which is not well defined, that is now emerging, you really need to be super flexible. And that is one of the mantra. The other one is called natural leaders. So natural leaders are, we try to put together the leaders in the organization that people like to follow. And those are the people that initially everybody follows, just in terms of horizontal leadership, right? So those people are, everybody is going to work with those people. Everybody is going to go and ask them questions just because they're, extremely knowledgeable and helpful, and not because they're put in that position and because of their title. And that's why we try to use that to really emerge all of our leaders from within the company as much as possible, so that we don't have to parachute people all the time from external setup. We also are very big on being a professional team, meaning that at the end of the day, everybody should be fully transparent. We don't want to have politics where everybody in the organization should be very humble. We should be in a position where, if, for example, one person is not performing at its top, he should be able to recognize that and appreciate it, and not to be a drama if he's not in that position anymore. Somebody else needs to step in, and that only happens if you have people with low ego and no ego, and people that are united by a common vision and common purpose, and that's very important to us. So this kind of a very transparent and candid environment is super important, because at the end of the day, we need to have 100% the right information at the right time. And if there are any kind of, let's say, politics, or people are afraid to speak their mind, then we're going to be making wrong decisions. And we want to hear the good news, the bad news, everything as it happens, and to be able to react to it. Because if we don't know the bad news, we cannot design, or we cannot work around them, and we can improve. Um, so those are the 3 4 things that are very important. We have what we call a culture deck at the company, where for each of those we explain the right behaviors. Because at the end of the day, who you hire, who you fire, and who you promote, and how you do those 3 things is what culture is.
And how do you apply that when you have like in the hiring process? Because I also read in the interview you guys gave for Forbes that you're targeting the top 1%, right? And I would imagine many of the roles are very technical, but then again, you also want to have people who fit the culture. So how do you kind of balance this of I want to get the best experts that are also fitting what we stand for, the purpose, the values of the organization?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, within this top 1%, there are many people that are brilliant, uh, but they have very high ego. Those are people that are going to be very self-centered, and it would be really hard to put them in a team and to be team players. And there is a great book by the founder of Netflix, Reed Hastings, about culture. And one of the things he says is that in their kind of mantra about the culture, they really don't like the concept of a brilliant jerk, right? I mean, you can be a top performer, you can be an amazing person, but if you're just somebody that is really tough to work with, somebody that is not accepting external opinions, somebody that's super opinionated and super hard to work with, people are going to avoid those people. And that is something that we also stay away with. There are many times we see brilliant people that are going to be for sure are, let's say, even top 0.1% on the market, but at the end of the day, the question is how well they can fit internally. And that's critical for us. So in terms of hiring, first of all, we try to have at least 4 people meeting with this person. And within 4 interviews, we know whether this person is a good fit for us or not in terms of a culture. We also try to have very uh, technical interviews for, obviously, for the engineers that are actually not that focused on technology. So we don't really care about what's your background in technology. You're going to learn the technology if you're smart enough and humble enough. The question is, are you intelligent enough? Are you, self-aware of, what you want to achieve? How do you see that, Payhawk contributing to your objective? And if we see a fit on those, we really don't care whether have been doing C++ or C or Java or .NET or JavaScript or whatever. I mean, if you're a strong engineer, or you have a very high IQ and EQ, we are absolutely confident you're going to be an amazing person at Payhawk. And this is something we also do for other positions. So hiring, let's say, for example, BDRs, account executives, marketing folks. It's really important for those positions to be the right fit. And hopefully over the course of 4 or 5 interviews, and usually take home task, we're able to get to close to the to, to the right decision.
Thank you for elaborating on that because there's many early stage founders listening, and through my work with now hundreds and hundreds of early stage founders, startups, I I recognize that often founders, especially early stage, they're tempted to make a hiring decision based on skills. Oh, we found this guy; he's a great performer. He's a little bit of an asshole, but they're really good at what they do. And always, there's always gonna be like later on, why did we get this person on board? They had to fire, and then this kind of rottens the culture. And this guy Hristo, the company is now at such a level, and he tells you guys, don't do that. Don't get the brilliant jerk. Just
Yeah.
try and get some kind, nice, open-minded people on top of being great performers. Of course, they have to perform. That's what it is. And Christo, you mentioned in another interview something in talking about strategy. I'm fascinated. You are based in Bulgaria. In only 4 years, you achieved such a milestone. And in another interview, you mentioned that you were very, and I'm going to quote you, methodical on how you planned your product vision, strategy, and later execution to ensure you had a chance of disrupting a space big enough to produce a massive company. Talk to me about that. How was your process of planning and execution? That's another area that especially early stage founders are struggling with, to find their focus and stay focused, because there's so many shiny objects all around, right? So how did you manage to stay focused on these key areas?
Well, there is only one anchor to be able to stay focused, and this is the customer. To us, the you know over the years building different products, we felt that we're at the stage where you know we just don't we understand that the first 3 4 months of a company are or idea are very critical, because you're going to shape 90% of who you are, what you're building in these 3 4 months. um, because as soon as you make a decision, hey, this is the market, this is the problem I'm going to solve, this is the company I'm going to build, then things get tougher and tougher. But it's easy to scratch ideas on a whiteboard. It is easy to change the plan, change the vision, change your ambition on a whiteboard. And this is, we were very deliberate about these initial 3 4 months to be able to be as open-minded as possible and as critical as possible. So we really wanted to see in the eyes of our people that sorry, to our prospect customers, when we show them a wireframe, really, to get to a stage where they're literally begging us to have this, right? Not nice to have, not, yeah, I could use that if I have it, but then when we have it, they're like, well, I have something more important. You really want to go and solve a big pain, not, you know, so you really want to create a painkiller rather than vitamins, right? Something that's nice to have, but you can survive without the vitamins. You really need something that is massive, solving a massive pain. And that was the anchor for us, right? We were very strict and disciplined about what we are and what we are not. And at the end of the day, the funniest thing is that our vision was, when I mentioned this vision to one of the founders here at the campus, after 4 months of validation, we put together the prototypes. It was just on wireframes. Um, um, he said, well, you're actually trying to build, let's say, combination of Expensify, Revolut for Business, and Receive Bank at the time, which was doing data extraction, and to do these other products. So you have 5 products into a single vision, and each of those is a massive company on its own. And I told them, yes, but that's wrong, because those companies should be one. And if we have the vision to go and build this thing horizontally, and instead of building these companies one by one, we are already on a big shortcut, right? Just the vision is, well, this needs to be one company. This needs to be one product, because this is what the market needs. This is where the financial people don't want to stitch together 5 different solutions, because they don't have to, right? The concept of banking is something that banks came up with. And if you think about business banking, it is just a consumer banking with a different color and different fees. But the needs of a consumer and the needs of a business in terms of banking are completely different. And nobody has been talking about it, because this was just what banks do, and you just take that as for granted. Everybody was focused on software, and it had nothing to do with financial services. And we said, well, why don't we go and reinvent how banking works for businesses? How do they make cross-border payments? How do they make reimbursements? How do they manage cards? How do they set up a policy for cards? And that was the grand vision. And we knew that the other thing you want to do very early on is, if this market is there, you want to get to a problem that is never ending, right? So you can continue add features and revenue streams and capabilities, and the market is going to use them as soon as they can, because this is something that they have been begging for. And to us, that was the anchor, right? We wanted to be very focused. Yes, the vision was massive, but we said, well, if we start, we shouldn't be afraid that there are 4 or 5 companies doing this. We should build it all together. And we need to find a way to do the shortcut and start with a minimum viable product that does the job in a different way than these companies in a single system. And just take it from there.
And talking about all these things, I have a feeling sometimes we spend a lot of time recognizing the successes and talking about the bright side, right? I mean, Hristo is on the cover of Forbes. They reached the unicorn status. Everything is sunshine and rainbows, and but actually, can you talk to me about the reality? Like, what did it really take when it comes to your commitment? When it comes to the hours per week you gotta put in, all the difficulties. Can you talk to me about the other side, like the real journey?
Yeah, I mean, the real journey is a roller coaster. I mean, especially for the first 2 years, that was really, really hard. I mean, I was working as hard as I have ever worked, and I usually try to, to invest a lot of hours into what I do. Um, and I remember getting day after day, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, back in the evening at home, and just taking a shower and thinking, I mean, I cannot crack this. I mean, it is so hard. I'm working as hard as possible. I feel that every bone in myself is doing as much as possible, and we cannot crack it, right? That was the time when we were doing the seed round fundraising in 2019. Um, and it was really devastating. I mean, you are putting so much effort, and then at the time, everybody was saying that's insane. You guys cannot build that. It is too much work. It's too hard. There are already well-funded companies. You don't have the strategy to do that, and or the means to be able to achieve this. And after you get like 50, 60 rejections, you start to question yourself, like, am I insane? I mean, but at the end of the day, what kept me going at that time was really that a lot of the people that joined the team were people that trusted me. A lot of those people had to decrease their salaries 4 or 5 times to join the company, and all of them, all of them were seeing the feedback from customers that we're building something that is meaningful. But the question was, at the end of the day, would we have the chance to prove ourselves? And the chance means money, because time is money, and for us, every day that we're investing is cost. And that was really hard. I mean, we were joking with Boyko that it was the roller coaster, right? You get in the morning super fresh, super pumped that you're going to have an amazing day. You come to the office, you receive a slap, you go down, then you recover in the afternoon, and then there is another slap, and then you're back on the floor, and then you go home, and you're like, it's so hard. But at the end of the day, I think this is where true team spirit shows, and the need to have strong co-founders and strong early employees, because at the end of the day, you rely on them a lot, and you also have this kind of motivation that is well beyond money, or any kind of financial benefits, right? If you're doing it only for the money, just go get a job somewhere. The chances that 95% of startups die. Um, and the hard truth is that 95% of companies die with a product. So they don't die because they cannot build a product. They die because they cannot have enough. They cannot crack the channel in which they can sell their product. And to me, that was something that I was very aware from day one, that is something that I know we need to crack. And that's why I invested a lot of time into this, with the team, to try to figure out how we go to market, who we hire, how we structure the teams. And we did 24 or 25 iterations of our pricing, because we knew that there is, more that can be done. And now we came up with, in September, we came up with this cashback program, which has done miracles to the business. So we're currently giving 3% cashback to companies capped at the amount of their subscription. So at the end of the day, if you're using the product, you're earning cashback, and the product is free of charge. And we do have multiple revenue streams. So one is the interchange that we receive from Visa and MasterCard, who are the card issuers. And then we have the SaaS fees. And the SaaS fees are the fees that every business pays to use the software. So by the customer using the software and using the cards, making the payments, we are actually being able to subsidize the SaaS and offset those fees from the customer with the cashback program, so that they don't have to pay anything for the software, and we make money from Visa and MasterCard. And this very well aligned our goals and the goals of the customer, because now everybody has an incentive to be using the product. And in order to get to that, it was 20 plus iterations of trying to get the pricing right.
And how did you manage all this? As you said early on, we can't crack it. I'm working everything I can, and like, do you have any suggestions for people listening now, like in terms of managing stress and
So
balancing out, staying motivated?
yeah, I mean, uh, I think one thing I'm good at is really to disconnect. So, I kept, playing tennis. I kept, finding time to do, snowboarding. In the summer we did sailing. So try to disconnect yourself as much as possible. And from when you are not at work, I know it's hard when you're in a startup. The feeling that, when you're in a startup, when we started with Boyko the first summer, uh, we went for a week. Everybody went on vacation for a week, and I was at the seaside, and I was thinking, like, if I'm here at the beach, 50% of the company is not working, right? And that is a very big stress. But at the end of the day, I think the key is to, also find time to disconnect yourself, and I think that's very healthy. If you spend enough time outside of work, with your family, with your friends, um, just to understand that, you shouldn't be afraid of failing, right? I mean, you should put yourself in a situation where you definitely need to succeed, but you shouldn't be in a situation where if everything goes down, I'm done, right? Because that's going to put too much stress on it. I mean, you can always go back and get a job. I mean, that is not the end of the world, right? And that's why I was never concerned about myself, but I was a little bit worried about, the team. First of all, I didn't have any concern whether they're going to find a job. I knew that they can find a job, but still that put a little bit stress. And I think to manage that stress, you need to also communicate with the employees. So everybody should be aware that the odds are against you, and that you're, fighting to survive with everything. It would be really bad to have, let's say, somebody on the team early on who is kind of on a nice salary, not, you know, doesn't have the right motivation, right? And that's why when we hire people, motivation is a big reason of our hiring decisions between candidates, right? Because at the end of the day, motivation is something that we can only influence, and we can set the right environment, but whether you're going to be motivated or not is within you.
We have
Um,
actually a very question from the audience that's kind of connected. I'm sure very many early stage founders would be curious to hear your thoughts on it. So it's a question by Gary, and she's asking, you said that people you hired early on agreed to work for you for 5-6 times lower salary. How did you convince them to come work for you?
well, I think part of that was the vision, like the right motivation, right? It wasn't guys join me so that I became rich, right? It was, let's build a company that we would like to have. Let's build a company that we would like to design the way we like it, right? Let's go and dominate the technology uh, a space which we believe we can dominate, right? So motivation and ambition was a big part of those employees. Trust was also, I mean, obviously for with a lot of those employees, I had previous experience, and the trust was there, right? Um, um, I think they have seen that at the end of the day, it's important for me to be able to give 120% and to set the expectations that if we don't succeed, it shouldn't be because we didn't put the effort, right? We should do everything that's possible and beyond that to be able to be successful. But whether we're going to be successful is a factor of market, luck, and many other things that we cannot control, and that's the reality. So if you have the trust of the team that everybody is going to work as hard as possible, I think people would believe that and appreciate it.
Gary, I hope that answered your question. And talking about talents, talking about team, I read in the interview that you gave to Forbes. I don't know if it was you, one of your colleagues, that currently the company has 100 plus people, and you are on a roll to hire, what was it, like 200, 220 more people in the upcoming, what, like 12 months
Yeah,
or
yeah,
so.
yeah. I
I
mean,
wonder, how do you do that? Like, how do you scale so fast without losing the DNA of the culture?
well, I think the important thing is the critical mass, because we're scaling from about 85 to 85 employees at the beginning of the year to 310 end of the year. And I think the important thing is that the people who are doing the hirings are the people that are already at the company, and they're the right culture fit, and they're the right people that we trust. So I think that's one thing, and the other thing I'm trying to do is with also Boyko and Konstantin, we try to spend as much as possible time on interviews ourselves. So I usually do, you know, about 10 interviews a week with people that are about to join the company as a kind of a final step to make sure that I'm feeling confident with those people. So at the end of the day, right now, 80% of what I do is hiring and, setting up and, working with recruiters and looking for talent. So I think that's very important. Trying to be involved, founders should be involved as much as possible until you get this critical mass. Because I think if we get 300 people and we get those people in the right setup and the right context, I think this is a critical mass. I think from 300 with the right culture and the right values, you can go to 10,000. And I think that's why it's very important this year, as we're doing that scaling from 80 to 300, to really be as much involved as possible, and to be brutal when things don't work, or when we have made mistakes. And we do make mistakes, and we just need to be fast enough to say, yeah, we made a mistake, we have to fix it. That's it.
That's actually a very, very important point. Many leaders I speak to share with me that they struggle with this type of creating a culture where people are feeling safe and not afraid to share when there is a mistake fast enough, because they're afraid, oh, you know uh, I don't want to be put on a spotlight, or why should I share? This is my manager, this is my boss. How do you create a culture of experimentation where people are feeling empowered to point out what is not working well?
Well, I think that is the part of the culture, right? Total transparency. Because at the end of the day, you should be able to share things that don't work so we can solve them. And at the end of the day, you shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes, right? We set the expectation that everybody is going to make a lot of mistakes. Mistake is not a mistake until you do it a second or third time, right? If you did a mistake, or let's say something unexpected happened, let's say it's not a mistake, and you didn't learn from it, and you did the same thing and you got the same result, that's a mistake, right? You had a chance to, learn from that, right? And if you do it for a second, third, fourth time, then this is the definition of sanity, right? um, if you're doing the same things and you expect a different result, that is a different condition. So we set the expectation that it is, we are in a very fast moving environment. We need to break things, we need to move fast, and we are going to make a lot of mistakes. So we are not afraid of the mistakes, we're afraid of not learning from the mistakes, right? So and that is the environment. So you're not, we would never fire an employee for a mistake. We're not never going to fire an employee for uh, 10, 15 mistakes that are different, right? We will let go of an employee that is consistently reluctant to learn and to be able to be coached, or to be able to realize or become self-aware about his approach. Uh, the worst thing is, point of no return with an employee is when that employee is really hard to receive feedback, when this person is defensive, when this person is really opinionated and very strong emotionally about certain things. That is very hard, because if everybody is strong about their emotions, that cannot work. We need to be flexible, and we need to be rational, we need to be practical. Sometimes we might agree to disagree, and that's fine. At the end of the day, a decision is, you make a decision when you have two opposing opinions, right? If two of us are on the same opinion, we are actually not making a decision, right? That's not a decision, that is just going with the flow. And that's why it is good to have this kind of a healthy level of disagreement, so that you can actually have different ideas, and that's fine, right? But it needs to be productive.
And do you have as part of the culture some sort of a mandatory regular feedback sessions, like teams are meeting up and talking about different projects, meetings, how can we improve?
Yeah, so we do a few things. Sorry. One of the I have a high fever, and this is the spring season, so my nose is running. Sorry for that. Um, so what we try to do is we do 360 degrees feedback once a quarter. So everybody that's peers, colleagues, managers can review people, and they can provide this kind of a holistic view about your performance. And this is something that's very important for the business, to make sure that everybody in this kind of a very flat and hierarchical, not hierarchical environment is not being, let's say, left out. So the 360 degrees is a main instrument. When employees start, we usually have a buddy program. So you have a buddy who is going to be the one that is going to, help you get along in the company, help you, understand how the company works, what we do, what we don't do, and so on. And we also do those check-ins with the buddy and usually the manager, that are in the first 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, when employees start. We are also investing right now in a program for employees to have a travel across our offices. So one of the benefits of being in so many countries is that we have so many offices, and we are putting together now a program for employees to be able to spend time traveling across the offices, so they can spend, a 1 week in working from Barcelona, 1 week working from, Paris or London or Berlin or Amsterdam, wherever they feel they would like to be, so that they can actually see the culture there, spend time with their colleagues, and this kind of try not to have very big silos in a certain country. And that's another thing that we try to do in terms of feedback. We usually have the teams very cross-functional. So you just don't have one team with all the managers and all the people in one country, in one location, right? For example, the customer success manager for the company right now is in Barcelona, but we have customer success people in Sofia, in Berlin, in London. The head of sales for example, is based in Sofia, but his team is across Europe. We are currently putting a BDR manager, for example, who is going to be again cross-functional. So we really try to have this kind of a cross-functional organization and hire the best people we can find in any of the locations, or
Great.
regardless of the locations.
Great, man. Thanks so much for sharing. This is some practical ideas that I think people listening can start already thinking about how can we set up a structure that kind of works and people can exchange ideas, share feedback in a constructive and effective way. I'm curious to ask you about your own goal setting and time management, like you personally as a leader. On the one side, you have to be a performer, right? You got to get things done yourself, but then there's the I got to be strategic, I got to coach the team, lead the team. So how do you manage your time? Do you have any kind of a process, a system that you use on a weekly basis, on a
Yeah.
daily basis to be on top of things?
Yeah, I mean, I try to bundle things. So I'm a really big believer of, um, you know, trying to bundle things and plan things that are next to each other, that there is some synergy or correlation between them. So, for example, usually Monday is for the CEO team. So we start with the CEO staff meeting in the morning. We go through the different divisions, and I use the day to follow up on anything that's a blocker for the team or anything that was a challenge for the team from the previous week. So I dedicated my Monday to the team. Tuesday is my meetings day. So usually I have the one-on-ones with everybody, and I try to bundle as much as meetings as possible on Tuesday, so that I know this day is just all over the place, and I cannot get to my email. So sending me cold emails on Tuesday is the worst. And then Wednesday is usually the day for product, and creative. So we start the day with a UX roast. So that's a session where we review wireframes of the product and we roast them. So everybody brings their wireframes and gets roasted for 1 hour and a half, and then we do the same thing for 1 hour with the marketing team and the creative team on anything that we do as ads and stuff. So this gives me a very good understanding of the things we are trying to do, hearing the opinion of everybody, what they think about, and how we can improve. And I usually spend the Wednesday focused on the product and the roadmap and anything that is in building stuff, because at the end of the day, we're a product company, and we should be building things. Um, and then Thursday is a day where I try to keep any spillover meetings from Tuesday into Thursday as well, so that I can, sometimes people cannot meet on Tuesday or my schedule doesn't allow. So we do that on Thursday. And I try to keep the Friday off for just myself. So Friday, usually I try not to have meetings and just work on things of how I see them, whether it's a strategy, whether it is something that I need to do, cleaning my inbox, deleting most of the emails. Pretty much that is my strategy. Try to bundle things so that I do have time for everything. So I do have time dedicated for product. I do have time dedicated for other things I want to get done, and I have times dedicated for my immediate team.
And do you have some sort of a weekly review that you personally do in terms of how did the week go? What should I focus on more and keep the team focused for next week, like you do on the Sunday or like Friday?
Usually, I do that 1 hour before the staff meeting, right? Because I don't want to do this on Friday, reflect on something, and then go over the place on the weekend and then forget, what day it is on Monday. I try to do this right before those meetings. So I spend, let's say, from 9 to 10 on Monday thinking about where we are with metrics, where are we with things, what are the key questions I would like to address to the team on the staff meeting. Is there anything that is currently in progress that I need to know about, or anything that I can help with, or anything that's a blocker, or anything I have identified last week that didn't go according to how we planned the week before. So I can ask, how things are.
And I just wanna, I'm very curious to hear what do you do to personally kind of keep growing, expanding your mindset? Like, do you follow any specific, podcasts, read any business books, follow some authors, or like you have a coach, mentor, I don't know, mastermind group? Just lead us on how do you keep sharp?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I try to read books that are relevant to the problems I have. So, for example, I really like, for example, monetizing innovation, the book, and this was something that really helped me when we were thinking about go-to-market strategy, pricing, and so on. Uh, Traction was another amazing book about revenue channels, 12 revenue channels that you can crack. So I try to sorry, whenever I have a certain challenge at work, to try to supplement it with something that's relevant. So, for example, when I'm on vacation, I never read business books. I usually read, sailing books or travel books or autobiographies or whatever that is far away from business, so that I don't have to bring my brain back to. If you're reading a business book, your brain is like rushing with ideas and things you can do, and that's why I try to bundle that. And I also listen to podcasts. So I try to listen to podcasts that are meaningful, relevant. So for example, when I'm fundraising, I spend, let's say, if we're in a fundraising mode, I usually spend the 2 months listening to VC podcasts, right? Just to get, I'm speaking to VCs all day, and it's good to hear them, off the record or speaking to somebody on a podcast, and just try to understand a little bit more about them and the mentality. And this helps me, even if I don't realize, getting this context at the right time is really powerful. So this is what I try to do. So in general, I definitely, have like 4 or 5 podcasts that I usually, when I drive, I listen to. So that this is just something that, let's say, I'm interested in. But when I'm in a certain mood or a session, for example, fundraising or cracking pricing or something else, I try to spend as much as time as possible getting as many resources at the time.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Hristo. And maybe to wrap up this conversation, final question coming from the audience. Thank you, Veneto, for being with us and asking this question. So her question is, how do you see yourself and or Payhawk in 10 years, let's say? Do you think about other projects or do you prefer staying focused on one but stable?
So first, thanks for the question. Um, I think what we are trying to do is really dominate the market. So we definitely want to go as deep as possible into the existing product. We don't want to spread ourselves too thin. So what we did in the beginning is we opened a huge area of things we are going to do. So we went very, let's say, horizontal in terms of strategy from day one. And that was on purpose to show the vision. And now the idea is to go really, really deep into those. So, I think at the end of the day, in 10 years, my expectation is that we should have Payhawk available in every country across the world, being able to issue a card, use payments, use bank wires into a single product. You should be able to have every possible currency into the platform. You should be able to use every possible payment method. So, for example, in the US, from you can actually do from card to check, because still people use checks. So covering all those payment methods and really creating a single platform is what we're striving to do. And on top of that, really being built a very strong enterprise stack that really caters to the enterprise customers and the complexity they need to manage, because a company that has, let's say, 40 businesses across the world is dealing with all those payment methods, all those different currencies, and this is something that we really like to own.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing the vision, Hristo, and thank you for being already a real role model for all of us here. As a fellow Bulgarian, I'm very proud and excited for what you guys are doing, the way you do it with the passion, with the right kind of mindset, with the right kind of execution, and I wish you all the success forward. Keep making us proud. Final kind of words from you. who should come and get in touch with Payhawk? How could they find you? And who are the type of customer that should consider your solution?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, in terms of getting in touch, obviously payhawk.com is our website. So you can use intercom for a chat, or you can just give us a call. We also have a careers page that explains the open position. So this is something that we advise people to look at, especially people that, uh, even if there is no position for them, there is a special section that says, I cannot find anything, but I still want to send the CV. So please do use that. In terms of customers that we are currently attracting, we just recently in Bulgaria, for example, released Bistro payments in Bulgarian lev. We have Bulgarian currency. So usually the types of customers that are using our product, for them to make sense to use our product, are companies that are above 30, 40, 50 employees. Those are kind of mid-size businesses. Sorry, I would say SMEs customers, but more on the larger side, larger SMEs, so to say. Um, but at the end of the day, we do have, even customers that are 5 people, who are, fed up of dealing with being chased by accountants for their receipts and invoices, and who want a little bit more modern infrastructure. Um, so in terms of final words, I think we need to create more products as an economy. So the more products we create, the better. So I would encourage people to to look to become product managers or entrepreneurs or founders, and not to be afraid to start. The hardest thing is to start and to make the decision. As soon as you do that, everything else is going to align.
Amen. Let's go and let's build some more great products. Thank you so much, Hristo, for being with us. Thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go check out Productivity Mastery on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, share this episode with a friend, and let's keep on spreading the great insights from some of the most inspiring and accomplished leaders literally on the planet, such as Hristo is. Thank you so much and have a fantastic and productive day.
Thank you. Ciao. Bye.